Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Varun Jhaveri, and I serve as an advisor to the Y20. Well, one of the most difficult things to do is actually, interact with audience, and that too after a very fulfilling lunch session. This is a time when the food has just gone in, and people generally gravitate towards taking a quick nap. I also used to do it, so I'm also one of the culprits here. Uh, I would rather keep it short, and then probably the intent behind having this particular consultation is to hear more from you. The young folks who are sitting. The idea is to have more of an interactive session. I thought that probably I will just speak for 5 to 6 minutes, share some of the experiences that I have seen. So it's been around 13 years that I have been working in the space of public policy, worked with government. I worked in the healthcare space, worked in the climate change space, but the first thing that really made me drift towards working with the government, working in the intersection of policy and governance was actually environmental protection. So before 13 years, I used to be a very young climate activist, who really started working with something called as the CEE and Tunza. So that was a network of young people who wanted to work in environmental protection, and from there I went to UNEP, I worked with them, and I was, at one time, I was the global ambassador for climate change at the World Conference of Youth. So, and from there on, in the last, 10 years, I've tried working on different aspects, in some position or other on the agenda of climate change. It's a very tricky, it's a very complex, it's a very layered, it's a very multi-stakeholder, sort of an approach that is required, because it is not a very simple problem to solve for. And it is not a very quantified problem that this is something that has to deal with numbers. It is something that requires efforts from pretty much everyone, from citizens to companies, to corporations to governments. Everyone has to put their best foot forward if we even want to move a needle. So some of the interesting things that I have seen in my last few years is that, just like how fashion repeats itself, sustainability and the practices, they also repeat. And one thing that we often forget is that if we look at our history, most of the civilizations, whether it is the Indian civilization, I see a lot of my friends from Africa, I see a lot of my friends from ASEAN countries, from Japan, a lot of this civilization by far were self-sustainable. So, even before this particular panel, quite a few of you mentioned that a lot of the practices that our civilization used to do, they were done in an end-to-end manner, which means that even the waste that was generated, it was getting used, it was getting utilized in some way or the other. So it was a very sort of an end-to-end sustainable one, practice that that I see often, and that I think is a big sort of is a big sort of an indicator of sustainable practices. That when I go to my home, even now, the water that we store, the drinking water, we still store them in clay pots. In Hindi, it is called as matka. And it is not a practice that you will see in other civilization, because they have something or other. And similarly, the water that we actually drink in, it is generally done in steel tumblers and not like a use and throw, or like in a plastic. But I see that a lot of this are getting shifted now. Plastic cups are coming along. There are more water thermoses. So the idea is that, can we start seeing a bit back in our history, a bit back in our civilizational practice, and we can probably get a lot of answers from there. So to move forward, you also need to ensure that you are also looking back. The second thing that makes me very, very, I would say, enthusiastic about this particular agenda is that if you look at the 18th and 19th century, it was the era of industrial revolution. You got better machines, the efficiency improved, workers got better wages. If you look at the 20th century, it was completely an era of digital revolution. Semiconductors, silicon chips came into play. We talk about the 21st century, and the time that we are standing, you can see that in the next 5 to 10 years, there is going to be a tremendous sort of a shock that is going to happen in terms of the green economy and the sustainability. And for the young people, especially, a lot of you are sitting in the audience, for you to actually capitalize on this, the green skilling is something which is going to be of utmost importance. So an example, that an analogy that I can draw is that just to capitalize on technology revolution, a lot of you learn coding. A lot of you learned how to work with computers. A lot of you learned how to, really, interact with machines. Now we have, artificial intelligence, a lot of, machine learning algorithms coming up. But the idea is that the next few decades is going to be how to again restore the world, how to again infuse the green economy, how to again bring the sustainable development back in the play. And for that, the world is going to require a lot of skilled young people, people who understand what is sustainable development, people who have the right sort of skills. And that's why a lot of new skill building as well as reskilling is going to be required. And that is going to happen from an end to end, like an entire sort of the cycle chain, right from the way the goods are manufactured to the way that they are delivered, the mobility space, the infrastructure space, the services space. So it is going to be an entire spectrum. And I think this is one thing that a lot of young people should focus on. The third thing that I have been seeing a lot is the fact that even when when I was coming in, I saw a great sort of a paper presentation which has been put up. I saw a lot of interesting paper, and that brought me to focus that a lot of times the the extent of sustainable development, it resonates that you are only doing this for the planet. And it is considered as a formality to be done. Just like how you have a CSR, that it's a sort of a tick mark that a companies would want to do. But one thing that needs to come into play, and there's a solid research which backs this, is that when you also go green, in the long term, you are also making better economical choices. So the idea that if you are choosing a sustainable development route, whether it's for your company or for your business, at the end of the day, for a longer term, you're also going to make better margins. So it is better for your business, it is better for your companies, it's better for your corporations. And I think that is something which is very important, that how do you start considering the entire narrative of green economy in the overall global financial order? There are many options that have been tried out. There have been green bonds that have been tried out. There have been a lot of blended financing, that have been tried out. But the idea is that, we need to start thinking that when we think about a particular loan, let's say, one question that we ask is that how much is going to be the rate of return? How much are you gonna, give me if I'm, investing certain money? The idea is that along with this, can we also start thinking about, if I'm investing a certain amount of money in a company, what is the type of environmental or what is the type of societal impact is my money fetching in? An example is that today when India announced a 10 lakh crore budget in infrastructure, every 1 rupee that has been spent, you get a return of 2.5 rupee. And similarly, if you actually put in a 1 rupee in infrastructure, that to a green infrastructure, there are studies which says that you can actually get a return of 4x, which is 4 rupee. And this is at a macro level. So, you know, bringing this mainstream narrative that this is not only pro planet, but this is also pro society's economical growth. Because one thing that I also heard this, that there is economical development and then there is a sustainable development. They are not two different sides of the coin. You can actually make them one side of the coin, and you can actually ensure that there is also economical development, and there is also environmental protection that is happening. And many countries, especially India, has been quite successful in that. Yeah, I will just wrap up. Again, we'll probably take more questions from you, but just to wrap up, I think one last thing that I want all of you, or rather, I want you to encourage all of you, is just doing one simple exercise. Whether it's your particular personal life, whether it's the corporations, whether it's the companies that you are working on, just try to do one small green audit, and that is pretty easy. Just think about what do you do in 24 hours, how many non-biodegradable, how many plastic products are you using, and just pick up two or three that you can replace. Don't be too harsh on yourself. If you become too harsh, it is not going to be sustainable. A lot of times we were like, I'm going to change the world in just 1 month. That is not going to how it works. Just it is as simple as that. Can I replace my plastic toothbrush with a bamboo toothbrush? Just the idea is that let's just do simple things. Let's be cognizant of what we are utilizing. Let's just be cognizant of what our companies are utilizing. Again, I have many examples to give, and probably we will probably discuss some of them during the Q&A session. But I think the future is definitely green. I'm sure that you would have heard a lot, but I'm pretty sure the future is green. And along with that, this is a great opportunity for the young people to engage and personally grow themselves. Thank you.